Hi y'all. This right now here at my house, I'm on Wednesday evening, actually Wednesday night, almost 11 o'clock at night, but I'm a night owl, not a morning glory, so you will not see me up in these videos, which granted, if I ever upload these videos at a morning in the wee morning hours, it's because I'm at work. I can promise you that one. And I do not do early mornings unless it means I'm almost off. So in any case, right now it is Wednesday evening, Wednesday night, and I am getting ready to make tamales. Tamales, as many Americans say. I'm getting ready to make them tomorrow, but I wanted to do some of the prep work tonight. Like I said, since I'm already going to be up, why not, right? And that way maybe it'll cut down on the time tomorrow, and maybe I can have everything done by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because tomorrow I also don't just have tamales to make. I do also have to do homeschool. I do have to do some cleaning, things like that. So I'm just trying to get some of this stuff done. Now, granted, I will let you know that anytime that you make tamales or tamales, I am so used to saying it with the Spanish accent. So if you just don't mind me. If you hear the word tamales or tamal, which is the singular one, a lot of people in English will say tamale. The proper word, if you could say, is tamal. But anyways, if you hear me use those words, you know what I'm talking about, because it's just what I say. I'm so used to it. Been using the same wording ever since 12, 13, right around 13 years ago, because I think the first time that I tried to make some was helping out was just under 13 years ago, and I have made them multiple times since then. Now, actually, the kind that I'm going to be making tonight and tomorrow are not any of your typical kind, and actually a lot of Mexicans that I have met, which of course, while tamales are used throughout much of Latin America, definitely your ones that you're going to find in the corn husk, they're much more typical in Mexico. But at the same time, the corn husk kind are not the only ones that are made. They also do some with banana leaves and multiple other, what is it called? Envolturas is like wrappings, okay? Now, these ones that I'm going to be making tonight and tomorrow are not any typical that most Mexicans that I've told about, they've never heard of them actually. But I learned about them from my sister-in-law, who had eaten them as a child. And she's brilliant enough that she remembered the flavors and made up the recipe from the flavors that she remembered. And then she taught me the recipe. So I could still kiss her to this day because she is an awesome cook. And she taught me most of what I know in the kitchen. And she was an awesome teacher, is an awesome teacher. I say was only because she's returned to Mexico ever since 11 years ago. So at the same time, I still know her. She's still a friend. And so I say she is an awesome teacher because she's still alive. But, you know, the time that she was my teacher was back, especially when she was here. And, but then she gave me the recipe for these when she was already back in Mexico. But a lot of the things that are included in these are the same as what's included in other tamales that I make. So, I will try to let you know whatever is a generalized thing and whatever is specific to this recipe, okay? Then also the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to separate some parts of the video because of the fact that when you're talking about the masa, the dough for the tamales, you want to have, it's the same for both kinds of tamales that I make. I will likely be making the other kinds that have the green salsa and whatnot like that. I will likely be making those around Christmas time because while it's not definitely specific to every Mexican household, but a lot of Mexicans that I know of, they like to have tamales right around Christmas time. They'll have things that are called posadas. And that's kind of like, though, people go from house to house doing like little reenactments of the nativity, and then they'll go inside and they'll have tamales, and if I'm not mistaken, you know, it's called café con leche, which is more milk with coffee instead of coffee with some milk in there. It's very good. I have had it before. It's been probably close to 20 years ago since I had it. but it's still, I do remember that it was delicious. And so, even though I do prefer my coffee, but anyways, that's beside the point, and I don't need to make this video to be 3 hours long. So let's get going to the cooking. I'm getting ready to start with putting some chicken on the stove because we already know it's going to take 30-ish minutes to cook, and you can use that time to start doing other things. It's not necessary to do one thing in particular, but you do know that you do need the chicken to be cooked to be able to put it into the tamales, because you have to have it shredded, and you cannot shred it obviously until it's cooked. So we're gonna get going on that, and hopefully this will be enjoyable. I hope that this recipe is enjoyable. I will let you know that especially for this particular recipe, if you don't care for cabbage, then this may or may not be for you. If you don't like a lot of different kinds of vegetables, it may not be for you, because this uses mixed vegetables and some kind of squash and things like that. And also, if you don't like oregano, this definitely is not for you, because you want a strong oregano flavor in this. So I'm trying, while I don't want to discourage anyone from trying these, but at the same time, I'm going to let you know whether this is a good idea for you to continue watching, because it's likely going to be a very long video. So here we go. We're going to get some chicken on the stove. So I've got the chicken here on the stove. Well, it's not actually on the stove. It's just in the pot. But of course, as I've already put in other videos, but for just in case you've not seen any of my other videos, I always add bottled water or gallon jug water, because the water here where I live, it's well water, and so it has somewhat of a sulfuric type taste. So I just use bottled water of some kind. Alright, and then we're going to turn that on. You can turn it on high, it really doesn't matter. Okay, I now have water in there. So then typically, this is actually, my sister-in-law always told me that this is to keep, she would say to keep some of the little bit of wild flavor out of the chicken. Now granted, this very easily could be from Mexico, because a lot in Mexico you have much more fresher produce and typically fresher livestock. You can buy the chicken still alive down the road. And so I can see how that this would still be much more from Mexico, but at the same time, hey, it creates a delicious broth, so I'm not gonna knock it, right? So here we go. We've got, she said, usually 1 clove of garlic per chicken breast, which right here I've got 3 cloves of garlic, and then I've got 1 more right here. You just leave the cloves. You do not have to open them up. Nothing of that is even necessary. And then I'm going to take, this is about 1/2 of an onion. It just stayed out of the refrigerator too long, so it looks a little dried out, looks a little ugly, but otherwise it's perfectly fine. So I'm going to just take this and dump it in the water. It's just for the flavor of the broth. You want to keep it together if it's possible. The only reason, not because there's anything wrong with it coming apart in the water, it's just a pain in the butt. I'm just being honest. And I'm trying to tell you stuff that I have learned throughout the years, through trial and error. My trial, my error, but also become my trial, right? But at the same time, it's not a big deal. So now we've got that on the stove. And something that I learned actually when I was first married that had nothing to do with actually cooking like this. But when I got my first set of pots to be able to do cooking at all with, when the ex and I were finally about to move out on our own, my parents got us some pots and pans for our new apartment and all that kind of stuff. And I was reading through the instructions and whatnot like that, and they were saying how that if you put salt into a pot before it boils, that it can somewhat weaken the metals. So I always wait until it's boiling. Whether or not that's with your pots or not, I mean, hey, you do what you do you. If you want to add salt now, feel free, go ahead. But I do wait until it's boiling. And also, the other thing I do is that once it's getting ready to boil, it will start to produce a kind of a foam at the top. And I will take that off. The woman that taught me about cooking Mexican food, she would use the word chuquiendo, which would be kind of like any kind of bloody taste like that, which I do believe that that still does have some of the remnants of being from Mexico. But at the same time, hey, it certainly can't hurt. And it also makes the broth look a little cleaner. Once it starts to boil, it just kind of incorporates itself into that broth if you don't take it off. And like I said, the broth just looks cleaner, and it's custom. I won't say that you have to do it, but it's definitely the way that I do it. And I'm just kind of sticking around for a minute up until this boils. I won't probably continue to record until it boils because it'll still be a minute even though it's on high. But it's going to get there, and when it does, then I'll record again and take off the foam off the top, and then we'll leave it, and I'll start doing some other stuff that hopefully will be preparations for tomorrow. So, alright, I'll see you in a second. Alright, so this pan, it's a pot. It's starting to look like what I was talking about. It's starting to have that foamy part on the top. And so I'm just going to kind of scrape it off with the spoon. You don't want to take too much of the broth with you because you're going to want that broth later on. You're going to want that to be able to help make your masa, to make your dough. So you want to leave as much broth as you can. Now granted, I don't plan to make an entire bag of the Maseca or the tamal mixture. This time I don't plan to make that many for multiple reasons, not the least of which it's likely only going to be me and my kids eating them, and they're not extremely big on some of the vegetables that I already know that I put in them. So I'm just trying to make some, especially to take care of my craving, being honest. And at the same time too, I figure that if there's plenty left over, I'll take some to a gathering on Friday night, and I'll give some away. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And so definitely, but these are mostly for me, I'm being honest. I mean, back in the day, I would do these for the ex. I did them as often as I could. Now, do be aware that if you're going to make an entire bag, it's like a 4-ish pound bag, I believe. 2 kilos, I believe, of the Maseca or whatever it is that you're going to use for the tamales, the corn meal is what I'm talking about. If you're going to use a full bag of that, this is likely going to end up being close to $100 in ingredients. Just be aware. This time, I really didn't pay attention. I know that I did pay attention while I was with the ex because I was typically limited on my budget as far as with food. One of the things that happens in general with most domestic violence is that there's what's called financial abuse. Typically, at some way or another, you are financially motivated to stay in the relationship because you cannot leave because there's no money to do so. Around the time that I was ready to, that I actually did get out, let me put it that way. Around that time, the reason that I was able to get out is because I have an awesome support system. Many victims don't. And I have not stopped thanking God for my support system on many occasions because I know if it weren't for them, I don't know where I'd be. I couldn't tell you 100% for sure that I'd be alive today. And I don't say that lightly. But at the same time, many times when I was making tamales, it was just I had a bonus at work, I got some overtime, something like that. It was not a common thing. Or also, I believe that back when I was with the ex still, my father-in-law still gave me some money to be able to make them when he knew that I wanted to make them. But I was like, I don't know if I have enough. And so he'd be like, how much do you need? So, and so anyways, which, you know, in that way, I'm like, that is such a compliment to me, because whenever I would make them on this, whichever kind that I made, regardless, this kind or the other kind that I have made, or that I did make while I was with him, anytime that I made them, I mean, I have had as many as 60 or 70 on the stove one evening, and within 48 hours, you just about couldn't find not one in the refrigerator that was left over. I mean, none. In general, I think that the longest that I ever went with leftover tamales after the first meal, and you know, from the time that they were on the stove, I think till the last one was eaten, I believe was about 72 hours. And if it wasn't eaten already, it was already spoken for, because my father-in-law was working, and you know, it was a Thursday or Friday or Saturday or something along that lines. And or I may have made them on, just for an example, on a Tuesday, and my father-in-law would be too busy, or if it was on a Wednesday, he works typically still a lot on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. He'll sun up to sundown pretty much, and so he wouldn't be able to come over at that time, because he would just be so exhausted from his work day. So he would wait until Sunday, which was his day off, and he would come over to the house, and you know, things like that. And that was the only time that I would have something still left over, was typically when we knew he was coming. We made sure at least he had some, and typically we would try to make sure that we would have some to accompany him, but then there were other times that there just wasn't. And so that to me is a huge compliment, because if people don't like it, if they know that your tamales haven't turned out very well the other time, they'll be like, thanks, but I've already eaten. You know, people make excuses to not have to take your cooking if they don't like it. And so, which, I mean, if you've heard people make excuses, don't take it personally. Try to believe what they said. I'm just saying, if this was a consistent thing, I'm not saying for one time only, because it's possible it could happen. But if it's a consistent thing, then it's kind of an indication that probably they didn't care for what you were doing. So I always took it as a compliment that they went so fast. And so anyways, this chicken is now ready to keep on boiling. I'm going to just let it be. I'm going to cover it up. I've turned it down a little bit. We're just going to leave that there. And then we're going to start getting busy on some of the other stuff, and to hopefully make the work quite a bit lighter for tomorrow. Alright? Alright, so the next step in our process, is what I'm going to be doing, let me put it that way, is going to be separating the cabbage leaves from the cabbage head. Granted, I don't remember if I said anything about this earlier, so I apologize. These things can be a pain in the butt to get to take apart. This is not like lettuce, I don't think. Lettuce, I believe, is a lot easier to take apart. So don't be surprised if they start to rip. Just be careful as you can. Something like this it's not the end of the world. You can still definitely work around it. But if it's constantly ripping all over, it can become a problem when you're trying to get everything put together, okay? Give me one moment. I'm going to grab a knife so that I can start taking off. I'm going to start taking off the bottom of this, and that actually helps a little bit with getting the leaves to come off. And so I'm going to start doing that. So, as you can see, I'm going to do my best. This is kind of tight. It gets really tight up in here, especially as you go deeper into these things, which because of that, I usually buy multiple cabbages actually, especially when I know that I'm going to be making a lot more. I'll buy 6, 7, 8, 9 cabbages just to try to make sure that I have enough leaves, because they're such a pain in the butt to try to get off, okay? And I'm not trying to sound like I'm complaining. I'm just letting you know that it can be a lot of work. I'm not going to lie, okay? I'm not going to claim that it's easy, but at the same time, it's definitely worth the effort. Okay, I'm going to just show you. I just kind of ripped it just right here, And then that sometimes will help, and I will try to put my hand up under here, okay, to kind of, you could call it to kind of like open up that vacuum so that it'll start to loosen up a little bit. All right, and this is something that I just learned by trial and error. And so there we go with that. I think it's starting to open up finally. Whoop, whoop. All right, and then it's just going to be like that. Now, granted, once I get these all separated, which it doesn't look like it wants to separate right here. Okay, come on, baby. There we go. There we go. Okay, this one still wants to try to rip, which is a very typical thing. You can see it's ripped here, and then it's also ripped here. So it's not coming off like I wanted it to, but there's worse things in this world, and there you go. And you can still kind of sort of keep it together. And once we get to wrapping, I'll show you what you can do with that. But this is going to be how you're going to wrap it, kind of, sort of. So you're going to want an approximate, you know, obviously depending on how many that you're planning to do. I'm thinking that I want to have a good 45 leaves, okay? Now, granted, this is because I make a lot of tamales whenever I'm making them. Some of y'all that might look at this would be like, only 45? But like I said, it's only for me and my kids. So, and possibly to a small get-together tomorrow, not tomorrow, on Friday. So, I don't need a lot, right? So, I don't want to make too many and just have an overabundant. The last time that I made some, it was for a Father's Day get-together. And so, I had about 70 when I started. Not 70, I apologize. I had 90 when I started. I might have had 89, but it was right around 90. And when I brought them home, there was not many left over. It was maybe 20. So, and, you know, because in general, if you're talking about Hispanics, they love their tamales. And especially if they're well made, I will try to help you out as best as I can with any of the pitfalls, because that's what my teacher taught me, okay? And so, because if you know anything about Mexican food, a lot of Mexicans are very good cooks. A lot, okay? And I would go so far as to say probably most. Because, of course, recipes down there are taught from generation to generation just in the house. And so it's a much more common thing that you're going to learn your recipes from your mom, your grandma, even sometimes great-grandma. But at the same time, what's it called? Some ladies that I have eaten their tamales, they lacked quite a bit. I'll just leave it at that. And so I will do my best to teach you about the pitfalls, and hopefully you will have them turning out delicious as well. So I'm going to just keep on separating these cabbage leaves from the cabbage itself. I don't know exactly how to make you be able to see it, because it's a little bit more difficult to be able to show on camera, because my camera stand doesn't point my phone down. So it's a little bit more difficult. I will do my best to show you at least one more leaf, because I'm now at the difficult part of the cabbage, but it wants to stick to everything. Oh, this one actually, I don't want to speak too quickly. It came off just, woo, look at that. Just about perfectly. All right. So I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 leaves currently. So I know that I still got plenty to go. I do believe that I got enough cabbages. I don't remember how many that I got this time, I'll be honest. But at the same time, I'm trying to make it where I believe that I got it where that I could do only 6 per cabbage if need be. But at the same time, I still want to have plenty more for if needed. Okay? So I'm going to try to make sure that I can get as many off as I can. So for right now, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn off the video. And I will return once I finish doing this and once there's something else that's going to be productive for this video. All right, I'll see you later. Okay, really quick, I'm going to let y'all know, I do have my leaves. I'll show you that in just a moment. But I am keeping one of these cabbage heads just because I'll be cutting a little bit of it, not a whole lot, because you don't want the cabbage to be overwhelming. If you enjoy the cabbage flavor, absolutely include as much as you want, but I don't recommend a huge quantity of it either. But at the same time, you might want a teeny little bit of it finely sliced. I won't say diced, but sliced up in there. And I often include just a teeny little bit in the mixture that goes inside. And then, of course, you have the cabbage leaves that's on the outside. So the cabbage is a little bit more of a centerpiece. Okay, but otherwise, there we go with that. I'm going to keep that, and I apologize for the mess, but at the same time, it typically does make a bit of a mess, so you need to be aware of that. If you're planning to make tamales at any point in time during the process, it's going to be messy, and if you take time to clean it up, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. I'm going to just be brutally honest. So, but anyways, here we've got lots of this is the leaves right here. Here's some of the other stuff, and this is just most all of the leaves over here on the counter because they don't fold into each other very neatly usually. So I have a bag here, and I'm going to take all the rest of these leaves that I have. I'm going to just put them into the bag. I apologize for the noise. I'm going to just take them and put them back into the bag. I'll put them into the refrigerator to go overnight. If I were making them everything in one day, I would take them and put them into some hot water. You don't want them to boil or anything like that for too long because then they'll become cooked. And you want to wait to cook them until you're actually making the tamales with the masa inside. So you just want them to become a little bit more malleable, if that's the word that I'm looking for. So you just want them to be a little bit easier to fold so that they're not breaking when you're trying to put them together. So I will see y'all in the morning. Likely I am hoping to look a little bit different, and I will see you then, and we will continue with this process. All right, well, good morning, or actually technically afternoon, which is pretty sad. Long story short, my phone decided to go low battery this morning, and it has taken almost an hour for it to be able to charge enough. I don't know why, but it's taken a while for it to get charged enough so that I can start recording again. Anyways, it's been a little stressful, but I've been trying to make sure that I can get other things done that I don't need to record. So right now, I'll try to show y'all really quickly. As you can see, I've got the chicken. It's back on the stove right here. I'm warming it back up because, of course, I cooked it last night. But I wanted to make sure I need to have the chicken warm to be able to shred it. It shreds much easier when it is warm. If you didn't already know that, I'll just tell you that from personal experience. Then also over here is where I've got my vegetables and whatnot like that are going to be part of it. I'm already getting them heated up because of the fact that I will try to bring this a little bit closer. I know that it's going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to try to not make it too crazy moving about and whatnot. But anyways, okay, here we are. You can see it's chopped up vegetables. It's got mixed vegetables in it, which are the frozen mixed vegetables. I am not going to try to chop all that. And then this right here is called Chayote. It's a kind of squash. I'll show you that in just a minute because I've got another one there. And then I've got some zucchini in here as well. It's small. It's cut up quite small. And so let's see, where's my other chayote? Just one moment. This is a chayote. It is a kind of squash. It has a I like to call it an earthy flavor. Someone else said that means it tastes like dirt, which when I first started eating it, I'll admit, yes, it does. It does kind of taste like dirt. But the beautiful thing about it is that whenever you put it into dishes, it will take on the flavor of whatever dish that you're putting it in. And so I definitely don't mind it. It's somewhat of an acquired taste if you're eating it alone, but at the same time, like I said, it's unnecessary to leave it alone in anything unless you like it. But at the same time, this is what you're looking for if you want to put it in your tamales. Of course, I've got the zucchini, which I had taken off the ends, and then I looked, and I'm afraid of my pot getting too full because I still haven't even put in any chicken, so I don't want to worry about that. And so I've just got one chayote right here and one zucchini squash that are in there with the mixed vegetables. And I will show you really quick. Now, granted, in a moment, I will also cut up some of that cabbage. I believe I mentioned that last night. And I will show that to you in a moment. But first, I've already got this ready to go. So I'll go ahead and get that recorded while I'm thinking about it. And I have right here, okay, in my blender, I'm going to bring it up a little bit so that you can see. You can see that it's just chopped. I won't say with any precision or anything. They are not chopped evenly at all. But it's just tomato. Any kind of tomato that you prefer. Whichever ones that you can find on sale is fine. I really don't care. I apologize. I'm probably moving this around a bit too much. But anyways, whatever you can find on sale, have that. Tomato in this, especially in the inside sauce, is kind of a moot point, whichever one that you want. Most of my Mexican cooking, I will use aroma tomato. That is what I'm used to. It's what I always used, but it's interchangeable. The first time that I made these kind of tamales, I was running out of my Roma tomatoes thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? So a neighbor of mine was actually at my house, and she was like, hey, I got some tomatoes at home, and there's some of those, you know, on the vine kind of tomatoes. I was like, well, thank you so much. And so it worked out. And that was what I used. And actually, that is what I've got in the blender right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start to blend it up. I'll show you in just a moment. I'm going to start to blend it up. I do already have some salt and oregano in there. I would lie to you if I told you I know measurements, but at the same time, like I said, to me it is taste based, and so I cannot guarantee that you would like as much as I do, or that you would want less or more. You might want more, who knows. But I definitely have noticed that the more oregano flavor that I have in this sauce is actually the better that the tamales seem to turn out with this. So your oregano flavor, I would just go with taste. As you go, taste it, see how you like it. The first time that I made it, the oregano flavor was not super saltantes, like, you know, it didn't jump out at you. But the next few, you know, the next times that I did it, they got better and better. And so I would recommend, if you like oregano, definitely add gobs and gobs. You know, but at the same time, also with salt. But that's the only 3 ingredients that you need for the inside salt for the vegetable and chicken part for the inside of these tamales. So here we go. I'm going to show you, because I've got it chopped up, you know, just chopped. It's just in order to hopefully make it where it's going to, you know, come down, like as far as to blend up. And then I will add more tomato to it to make more sauce for inside the other pot. But for right now, this is what I'm trying to do. Okay, so here we go. You can see that's exactly what I wanted. I just want enough liquid in there that it's going to be blended up, and it's going to make the remaining blending to be a lot easier. And that's the reason that I cut up the tomatoes in the way that I did. So that it's enough that it will be something else there to keep cutting and you want it to be kind of to get up under the blades up in that blender so that it has something to keep cutting, if that makes sense. You want it to be, you know, small enough diced that it's going to get up under there. If you have it too big diced, I found this out, especially the first time that I made these, if not possibly more often, the first few times maybe. But the bigger the dicing when you're first starting to blend it up is the harder that it is for it to catch on and to really become that liquid. All right. So learn from my mistakes. That's one of the reasons that I named my channel White Chica Cooks, because I'm a white girl and I'm taking things with the white girl mindset, and I'm trying to help you understand how that the Mexican kitchen works from a white person mindset, that I knew nothing about the Mexican kitchen before I started. So here we go. We're going to get some more tomatoes in there. These, like I said, are just the on the vine ones. Same flavor. So, all right. So as you can see, I've got my blender pretty full. It's just a lot of tomato. I'm not adding any other salt or oregano at the moment because I'm going to do a taste test before I do anything else. But we're just going to, I'll just show you. It blends very easy. See? Alright, now we're going to do a taste test and then we'll see how it works. Okay, and as I've said before, this is not a foolproof process. As far as it doesn't, just because I've done this before doesn't mean that I know exactly how everything's going to turn out, exactly how much salt to put in every single time. And I'm adding more oregano and more salt right now. So, and then I'm going to blend it up again, but I won't put you through that. I will bring it back just as soon as I'm done and it's ready to go. Alright, y'all, I think I've got this sauce pretty much where I want it, so I don't want to add all of it to the pot yet, but I will definitely add some. Alright, I'm just going to put it in there. I want for there to be enough for just in case, both to give it just a little bit of flavor with these vegetables while they're starting to cook, but also I want to, I'm going to have to put in the chicken in just a few minutes. So I'm going to want to have that in there. I want there to be enough room. So I'm not putting all of it in there by far. But at the same time, I'm definitely putting some in there so that it can start to warm up. There's lots of reasons. But now we're going to shred the chicken. And for just in case you don't know about this hack, probably a lot of people do. I learned about it several years ago from Facebook. But at the same time, I'll show you a hack for just in case you don't know it, and we'll get to it in just a second. Okay, so here we go with my little hack, or whatever you want to call it, that I will admit I learned from somebody else. I'm not going to claim to have learned it from, you know, or have invented it on my own. I'm not like that, because I already know that I didn't learn this from me, that's for sure. I would have never thought of it. And before learning this, I can promise you, I took usually 2 to 3 hours to shred my chicken, because of the fact that I never could figure out how to do the whole fork thing. And so it would take me so long, and I just gave up a lot of times, and I just went ahead and did it by hand. And that would take me 2 to 3 hours, like I said. Once I learned this, screw that. It took me maybe 15 minutes. So here we go. I gotta, oh, I do need to plug this in. It would probably work a little bit better. So here we go. Gonna plug that in. All right, here we go. Now, all right, I'm going to show you real quick. Look at that. I have currently now in my home, obviously, as you can see, I have a KitchenAid. I have done this with back in the day, they had those, what, $6 beaters at Walmart? I've done this with that. Okay, I think that the most expensive mixer thing that I did this with when I was with the ex, other than the $70-ish one that my parents gave me when they got their KitchenAid, I believe that the most expensive one that I had before that was $25. So it's absolutely unimportant what you have. Use what you have and absolutely go with it. You can still make amazing food regardless, okay? And like I said, you saw, I did not stop the video while I was doing this, and you see how long it took. And that chicken shredded, baby. It's ready to go. So I'm going to get the rest of this. I'm going to get it into the pot, and I'll be back in a minute to show you. I'm going to make sure that it's all mixed together, so that, and then after that, all that we got to do for the inside of that to be ready for the tamales is just for it to kind of thicken up a little bit, get rid of a little bit of the water. Of course, I have had these vegetables already on the stove for a little bit. I had the mixed vegetables, since they were frozen, I had them on the stove for probably a good half hour or something like that, trying to get rid of some of that water, so that hopefully should help with the cooking time. Now, of course, we don't need for this to be cooked. It's already cooked. The vegetables are gonna get cooked if they're not already by the time that they hit inside of the tamales. You just want that mixture, especially from this, you want it to be a little bit drier. That's the only thing that I'm gonna be looking for before it's time to get everything wrapped up. So you don't want it to be a soupy mess inside, because then it will make the tamal to be somewhat doughy inside and cooked on the outside, and then it's not good. So you want it just, there you go. And I'm gonna add that in, and we'll be back in just a moment. And y'all, I am already forgetting that I was only gonna make probably about a half batch of this, because look at this. I don't need all this sauce. It's kind of funny, but this is what I would make for an entire batch. And you can see that my pot's already pretty full. But something else I'm going to show you real quick, hopefully you can see it, is that there is a lot of liquid here. I'm going to turn it so that you can hopefully see it a little bit better. But there is a lot of liquid. I think I might just have to take the camera a bit closer. I will momentarily. But I'm probably going to add just a teeny bit more of this, just to make sure that the flavor is there. But otherwise, I'm not going to need it to be really crazy full. I'm not going to use all this. I will bring this close so that y'all can see. This is a typical beginning. Oh, gracious. This is a typical beginning. You can see, especially like over here and over here, there's a lot more liquid. So you want that to start to dry up. Over here, if you can see that, you want that to start to dry up before you start thinking too much about making, putting together the tamales. But also the other thing that I was going to mention, it's going to be very difficult to record because of the fact that I don't have anything that will make the camera turn down. So I will definitely I will show you in just a moment after I've started to do this. I'm going to finely dice some of this cabbage just to add just a teeny little bit of bulk. You don't need much because you've already got the cabbage on the outside, and so it's not a big deal, but you do want a teeny little bit if you like cabbage, okay? If you don't like cabbage that much, then just leave the cabbage leaves on the outside, and then once you're ready to serve it, you can actually take them off, just like you do with the corn husk for other types of tamales. Take the cabbage off. You don't have to have it. Even though if you like it, obviously, for obvious reasons, you can always add as much as you like. I wouldn't recommend too much because you don't want it to be overpowering. You want to taste other things in your tamales. So, but here we go. I'm getting ready to show you what I've got. Give me 1 second. And then, obviously, I'm gonna definitely be cutting up some more, and I'll probably record right before I put it into the pot. But I'm gonna show you momentarily. Here's what I've got. I'm gonna try not to make it too crazy. Oops, sorry. Here we go. It's very finely diced. You can see it's very small. Okay, that's what you want because you don't want huge clumps of it whenever you're getting cooking. All right. So I'm going to get busy on this. I'm going to cut up some more, and then I'll get it dumped into the pot in just a moment. But like I said, I will return right before I dump it in the pot. Okay, so here I've got about as much as, oops, gracious, I'm not trying to dump it all over everywhere. This is about as much as what I'm going to put in there. I'm not looking for it to be a whole bunch. And you just want it to be somewhat proportional to everything else that's in there. You can add whatever vegetables that you like in here. That's exactly what I was told. I add a lot of vegetables that Mexicans generally use in their soups, which of course now today here right now while I am recording, it is Veterans Day. So it is November 11th. And that's one of the reasons that I'm wearing my Coat of Vet shirt. So, but that is one of the reasons that I am wearing this shirt today. So, but the one thing I was just going to mention, it is November 11th, of course, since it's Veterans Day. And here in North Carolina. And, well, here in the U.S. And, but because of that, pretty soon it's going to become cold weather. Right now it's generally pretty nice out there, actually. It's supposed to be in the 70s today, but at the same time it has already been in the 60s, and I think that we've had highs in the 60s like last week or something like that. And pretty soon that's going to be the trend, and then it's obviously going to go down because of course I'm on the coast. So therefore, because of that, the cold is different than up north because of the fact that we've got the added wet from we're right next to the ocean. So, but, and then all we get is the cold rain when it gets to be a lot of cold weather. We don't really get snow in general because there's the salt in the air from the ocean. So, yeah, not my favorite weather, but it works, right? You got to deal with what you got. And I've got my support system here, and so, hey. And what I was going to mention, too, is this is how much I had of that cabbage that I took off. It's not that much. You really don't need a whole lot. It's just enough to add a few more vegetables, add a little bit more flavor. So, and then we got that right there. It's starting to boil real good. So, it'll start to thicken up in a few minutes, hopefully. And we're going to get on the masa, which is your dough. Alright, so here I am. I'm back. I'm getting ready to make the masa, which is the dough. I have just under a half of a bag of this I use the masa brosa, but you can use Maseca for tamales. You can use any kind of cornmeal, corn flour for tortillas or tamales. I prefer for tamales just because it's what I'm used to, but at the same time, this is what I have on hand for one, and for two, I like the fact that it's organic. A lot of the other cornmeal that you're going to find is going to be somewhat genetically modified, and I prefer not to put such things in my body if I can help it. Now, granted, I will show you, I have a humongous bowl, but this is what I use typically when I have an entire bag of this. But since it's what I always use for my masa, I'm just going to keep on with my tradition. I'm going to get a teeny little bit more just so that I can say I have about a half a bag, because I wanted to do about a half a bag. So I'll be right back and I'll get that and I'll start that up. In the meantime, I'll just have you notice that this is starting to, I mean, it's already boiling, but it's starting to get a teeny bit thicker. It's starting to have some of that liquid boil off. So that's always a good thing. I'm going to stir it up just a teeny bit. Obviously, for quite obvious reasons, you don't want this sticking to the bottom of your pan, which of course, this is a copper, whatever you want to call it, copper, to keep it as the non-stick, but at the same time, you still want to be careful with it. I've had a couple things stick, and especially since I've been using it for going on 2 years, it's getting where it's getting a little scratched, and they weren't the most expensive copper ones that were available. So anyways, but yeah, you don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pan, so you're going to want to keep on moving it around every once in a while, and it'll help to make sure that that liquid stays where it can boil off and everything like that. So, like I said, I'm going to go and get a little bit more of the cornmeal, and I'll be right back. Alright, so here I've got another bag. I'm going to just add just a little bit of it, not a whole lot. I just want it to be an approximate of a half a bag as to what I'm putting in there. In part because I know the measurements that I have for an actual bag. So that's one of the reasons. But also, I really am not in the mood to have that many tamales. As much as I love them, but I don't need that many because I could not probably eat them in time. So here I've got it in here. Not a big deal. There we go. And then the next thing that you want to do, you want to get some kind of a baking powder. You want to take Some might measure it. I don't. As far as like with a measuring spoon, I'll take it. And since it's only a half bag, I'm not going to worry about the fact that it's, you know, I usually will take a heaping tablespoon or serving tablespoon. You just want to just an approximate. If I do a whole bag, I will do a heaping serving tablespoon, and then I'll usually add a little bit more. The woman that taught me how to make these, actually, she only put in one heaping tablespoon, serving tablespoon. So then you just take it and just kind of mix it up because you want that in there. I mean, you could probably use a mixer with it, but this is how I've always done it, so it's not a big deal. A lot of ladies that do tamales will use something called manteca or lard. I never have. The woman that taught me how to make tamales, she always ever used oil. And that's the way that I do it. I have started to watch a couple videos here and there that use manteca, and it sounded really good. It sounded like something I'd love to try, but I have not done it yet. So, but that's that. It's just incorporated, kind of like what you would do with the mixer. I'm just doing it with a spoon. There you go. And then next, you want to take, I'm going to make sure that this is still going good. I don't want it sticking. And it's looking like it's almost getting ready to stick. So it's probably a good time to keep an eye on it. But that's a good thing, because that means it's almost just about ready. We're getting everything where we're just about ready to start putting everything together. These I forgot to mention already. Okay, I've got this pot here on the stove. It is full, not full, it's about 2/3 to 3/4 full with cabbage leaves. Alright, and they're getting not cooked. I've just got them on a very, very low temperature. I just want them to get somewhat softer. And so in the meantime, I want to have, I personally love this oil for these tamales. I started out using Maseca corn oil. And at one particular time, especially after I started learning a little bit more about genetically modified foods and things like that, I had a friend come over that she was going to start learning how to make tamales, and I was trying to be thoughtful about her because she does everything organic pretty much, and so I was trying to get something that I would think that she would be more comfortable eating. So I went ahead and tried this, and I tried the masa with it, and the flavor was just, oh my word, it was so much better. So this is what I use. Does it mean that you have to? No. You can use Maseca. You can use whatever oil that you prefer. I remember that when I've tried tamales in Mexico, a lot of them will have a buttery flavor that I have not yet been able to figure out how to get to, but that's that. I've thought about trying butter, and I have not yet been that brave. So if one of y'all tries it with butter, absolutely let me know how it turns out. So now, because this is only about a half a bag, I'm going to put approximately half of this bottle. If I use an entire bag of the Maseca, or your cornmeal, if I use an entire bag, I will use an entire bottle. This is 25.4 fluid ounces, which is 750 milliliters. But since it's only half a bag, I'm going to use approximately half of this bottle. Yes, it's a teeny bit more expensive, but sometimes you don't want to skimp on flavor, and also the fact that olive oil is so very healthy for you. Why skimp on health, right? Because you want something that's going to be healthy. And then after I figure this out, I will see how that works as far as, you know, if it's enough oil, because I may have put in more of the cornmeal than what I thought. I'm not sure, but at the same time, I'll just play it by ear, and we'll see how it works. And then I'm going to do, it's just over a cup and a half, because you want approximately 350 milliliters. So, let's see. Yeah, we'll right around a cup and a half. I could be wrong, because typically a cup is supposed to be right around 240 milliliters, so half of that would be 120, so that would be 360, so we're good. So right about a cup and a half if you're going to do a half of a bag like I am. And we'll check this again. Alright, we're getting there, y'all. We're getting there, we're getting there. It's starting to dry up real good. really nicely. So I am so excited. This is starting to really mean something. And woohoo! Alright. Okay. And then it's just going to be the red coloring instead of the red juice. And that's actually a really good thing. And so, alright. So now you've got this in here. And I'm about to get my hands dirty. So it'll be interesting. But anyways, here we go. I'm going to just start swirling this around. If I feel like it's a little bit too wet, I'll go ahead and add a teeny little bit more of the cornmeal, but it very well may. And we'll see in a minute. But you definitely want to get your hands in this. This is not something that you can use your beater or anything like that with. You want to use your hands because your hands will feel it. Okay, I wish in a way that I could do this with people present, because that's how I've ever taught anyone else how to do this. Feels like it's probably a teeny bit too much of the oil. So I'm going to add just a little bit more of the cornmeal, because it just, as much as I don't mind having a little bit of extra oil, but yet you don't want it to be, you know, like, you don't want your tamales to be oily either, okay? You want them to be, and obviously you don't want them to be dry. So you just want it, it's starting to look good. Okay, I think that may be good. Because it's still, let me see if I can't show you, okay? Alright, I'm going to show you this like here. It's still easily unclumping, but you want it to clump together. The best that I can describe it, like I've described to other people that I have taught how to make tamales, is if you've ever been to the beach and you go and play in the sand at the beach and you want to try to do a sandcastle, that is the consistency that you want when you're making the masa, okay? Now, granted, obviously that's not going to be the end result, but that is what you want when you're incorporating that oil. You want it to be pretty much throughout the entire thing, that any part of it that you pick up, and you can do like that, you want it to stay almost like a snowball. I'm trying to think of anything that I can relate that to show you what you're looking for when you're making these things, because it's so easy once you know, but at the same time I want it to be easily relatable for anyone that does it. Okay, now we're ready to get the broth in there. And that's the reason that I love to have that onion and the garlic in there, because it adds a beautiful flavor. And I'll be right back and I'll show you a teeny little hack with that as well. It may not be a hack for some people, but at the same time, it's something that I had to learn through lots of trial and error. I can promise you that. And so I'll be right back. Alright, so now I'm back. I know it's only been another couple seconds, but here we are. Okay, now, I will admit, last night I forgot to add any salt with the chicken. So, but at the same time, it's a moot point, because the chicken takes on the flavor of everything else. I don't care. But once you're getting ready to make this masa, you want to have some salt in that broth, because you need there to be salt in the masa. Okay? So before you even start to make the masa, check your broth. Okay, it should be a teeny bit salty. You don't want it too salty, but you do want it to be a teeny bit saltier. You want it to be a teeny bit saltier than what you would want it to be for broth in general, as broth, okay? I'm just making sure that that dilutes and everything like that. Alright, I'm going to take that. I'm going to check out how salty it is. Nope, need some more. Alright. And like I said, you can use any kind of salt that you prefer. While I was with the X, I always used iodized salt. I now use pink Himalayan salt, but you do you. Alright? Okay. And I'll be right back as soon as this is salty enough, and we'll be ready to make the masa and finish it up. Okay, here we are. Now, I've got this. I think it's pretty good. It probably may need a little bit more salt in a minute, but One thing I'm going to tell you is, especially if you're going to be making an entire bag of the cornmeal, dump it in there. I would say just about almost all of that broth. You will probably need all of it, okay? I'm actually a little bit nervous, but I shouldn't be. But typically you can add in a bunch of broth and it usually will just start chupando. It's like it sucks it all up, okay? Usually whenever I make this, I start to get a little bit nervous at the beginning, and then I start to, get it all mixed together, and then the nerves go away. So I was thinking for a second that since it's been so long since I've made only a half of a bag, I'm like, oh no, did I put in too much? And now I'm like, nope, I think it's probably almost perfect. I won't say that, and this would be a first, okay? I never put in enough or too much in general on the first try. I might put in too much after a couple of tries, but it's never been on the first try. So here we go. All right. Yes, yes, yes. This is actually looking just about perfect. I think I'm going to add just a couple more drizzles in there. But before I do that, actually, I'm going to take a little piece of this, okay? This is what I would tell anybody. You want to try your masa to make sure that you like the salt content. You want to make sure that you like the way that it's tasting. Because as my sister-in-law said, in general, your fillings, as far as with that definitely you need the sauce to be right, because the vegetables are going to be the same, the chicken's going to be the same, but you need for that sauce to be right, and you need for your masa to be right, okay? Because if they're not right, the whole tamal is just not right, okay? So you just want to take a little bit of that. And as I expected, it could use just a teeny, itsy, bitsy, a little bit more salt. But otherwise, we're good. Alright? Okay. I'm going to just add just a teeny little bit. Y'all are probably looking at me like, just a teeny little bit? Anyways, but it's not a huge amount. But also, like I said before with some of my other videos, that the pink Himalayan salt doesn't add the same salt content. Now, of course, I've just added just a little bit more of that broth, and I like to add that salt before I add the broth, because of course that broth makes the salt dilute and it helps to incorporate it into the masa a little bit better. Just the same as what I say about tortillas, same with the tamal masa. Okay, your dough, you want it to pretty much be to a point that it's not sticking to your hands. I won't say that it's completely unstuck, because you're gonna have some stuff that's gonna stick to you, right? That's just normal. Okay, there's a certain amount that it's gonna stick, but once it's not really sticking to you anymore and it's easily moldable, that's the big thing, okay? Easily moldable and not sticking, okay? Then it's ready to go, okay? It's not sticking to my hands, easy, but it'll keep its shape, okay? That's what you're looking for. And I will try it again, see for salt content. That actually is really good. It's been since June. And of course, like I've said before, it is now November. I have not made tamales since June. So let's see, that would be 6. Now it's 11. So we're looking 5 months ago. And before that, it was probably since Christmas. So yeah, I have not made many tamales ever since I moved in with just me and my kids. And I don't believe that I made any while I was living with my parents for 11 months, almost 12 months. But some things are like riding a bike. You never really lose it. So, in any case, yep, there we go. We are ready. And the innards are pretty much just about done. I'm going to check on these cabbage leaves, and we're just about ready to wrap. And this is getting to the exciting part, because that's when it gets, I won't say it's faster, but you know you're starting to see the finish line. It's getting there, okay? So, and also I'm going to have one more hack before we actually wrap, I will show you in just a moment, because there is one more hack. Because as I've said to other people, yes, I know a lot of Mexican recipes, but Mexican ladies can do some things because they learned it ever since they were little girls that I learned after I was 30 years old. So here we are with wrapping. I don't wrap and stack them like you'll see in the ollas, la vaporeras, the big pots that they have. I don't do it like they do. I do, but yet I don't. And I will show you that in just a moment. Okay, here we go with my hack. Alright, aluminum foil. This is a lifesaver, a sanity saver. Now granted, this is, you know, I'm a typical, I think, typical sized white girl as far as my hands. Maybe I've got a little extra, you know, on the rest of me, but you know, hey, I'm saying as far as hand size, I'm probably very typical. This may be actually a teeny bit small for these kind of tamales. This would be great for the other kinds that I make. So I would definitely recommend something a teeny bit bigger. Something a little bit like yay big. It's almost the size of my shoulder. So, I mean, but of course, that's whatever you want to call it. But anyways, that is my hack, because that way you can keep everything in there, keep it all together, and it doesn't fall all apart. And especially with the cabbage leaves, if they're not as soft as what you want them, then it makes it where it's a lot easier. I have already cut these up. I've got 20 here. I keep them in little stacks of 10 so that it's a lot easier to figure out where you are once you've gotten going. Okay, I've gone through 2 stacks. I've gone through 5 stacks, whatever. I've got XYZ number. And then if you already know that you started into another stack, count how many you got left, that kind of thing. It's one of those no-brainers once you figure that out. But at the same time, that is a big white girl hack, okay? Because I cannot do the same as what a lot of I cannot do the same as a lot of Mexican women, but that's okay. I'm not a Mexican woman, but I can throw down in the kitchen just like one in the way that my flavors come out just like a Mexican woman. So that's what's important. So if I gotta have a few hacks, so be it. All right, we're gonna get ready. We're gonna get wrapping these babies and getting them on the stove. Yeah. All right, I'll see you in a second. All right, so here I am. I'm back. I'm pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna just show y'all one more thing before I actually get wrapping the tamales. Okay, give me one. Here we are. Okay, I want you to notice I have this big, huge pot. Okay, you can see my hand is, you know, small compared to it. Okay. This is something that you can buy at any local store, any local grocery store, pretty much. I got this one off of Amazon because it's so large. But this will turn any pot into what is called a vaporera. It's into a steamer, okay, that you can steam food. Now, obviously, depending on the size of your pot, then you may want to get a smaller one or a larger one. I measured the diameter of this pot. And this still is a teeny bit small comparatively, but it works and it will be enough. All I got to do before I'm getting ready to wrap everything is I just got to put some water in here. You want it to be pretty much right up to wherever your line is. This did have, actually at one time, it did have one that would sit in here, like a little thing just like this. It would sit in here, but somehow it got lost in my move when I was moving out of the apartment where I lived with the ex and into my parents' house. It got lost. So I got that one off of Amazon. It works. That's all that matters. And it is, but like I said, what I want you to do is fill it up pretty much like right up under where this stops, because it's going to, at some point, it's going to start boiling. And so you're going to want to have it, where that you can check the water line. You don't want the water boiling up into the tamales because then it can make them wet. It can be a pain in the butt. I'll just put it that way. But you want it like right up under there so that way if there's any water getting up in there, it's just a bubbling and you're not going to get it super wet and it'll be just fine. And so I'm going to put some water in there. I may show you the line, but for just in case, I just wanted you to know where it's going to be. There that is. And we're going to get wrapping in just a moment. Okay, it's almost impossible to see. I do have the water up in there. I'm going to move this so that you can see. It's right there, right up under there. And any water that's on top is just something that hasn't drained out. That's all. So we're ready to wrap. Here we go. All right, now I have my setup here. I'm ready to start getting everything together, starting to fold up, or all of a sudden my brain is farting and so I can't remember exactly the word that I'm looking for, but I'm going to take these leaves and a lot of them, one thing that I forgot while I was getting them cut up and everything or taken off of the cabbage heads, you can actually do like this and make one tamal just like this. It doesn't have to be huge, but yeah, so you just want to kind of flick off some of the water, and then you just want to take a teeny bit of that water, flick off a teeny bit of that water, take some of your masa. You don't need a whole lot, especially depending on the size of the tamales that you want to make. I usually like to get what I would normally do. Let me put it that way. What I would normally do, I would get a ball about yay big, okay? I'm going to try to show it to you in my hand, but usually that's actually too much, so I'll just take off and throw it back as I'm working. So you'll probably see it. I'll do a few here on video, and then after that I'll turn off the video and finish up and then show you what it looks like in the pot. But this is one of those things that I promise you, if you have not ever made tamales before, don't worry about it. It's going to take a little bit for you to get as quick, because I've been doing these for over 12 years. I know that I did the first ones that I ever did shortly before I got married 12 and a half years ago. So, and then I made some, the first time that I ever made tamales on my own, I want to say we were less than 1 year married. And then I made them on my own without even being with that particular teacher. Without her there, and so that was after 1 year of marriage. I do remember that because we were living somewhere else, and we lived actually with his brother and sister-in-law for our first year of marriage, pretty much. Now, of course, you've got that. You've got it. You want to flatten it out. You don't want the masa to be too thick, okay? You want it to be somewhat thin. You can see, let me see if I can't show this. I apologize. I'm gonna have to put this right back. All right, I'm gonna show the screen a teeny bit. You can see kind of, sort of, maybe that there's spots where it's kind of comes through. All right, and here we go. And you can see it's very thin. You want it to be thin because you want to enjoy not just the masa, you want to enjoy what's inside. I've had some tamales that they weren't bad. They were pretty good, except for the fact the one thing that I did not care for was because the way that I learned to make tamales, you could say, that had quite a bit to do with it. And I am used to having less of the dough and a lot more of your innards. The same with the tacos. You want more of the innards than you do of the dough of the tortilla. So, but yeah, so I've had some that they were very doughy and you didn't get to enjoy the innards very much. But like I said, that's the way that I learned. So, I mean, if you make them doughy, you do you. If you like it like that, absolutely, you do you. And then you want to add just a little bit. You don't want to add too much because you want to be able to fold it back up, all right? You're going to take it, fold it up just like this. If you want to do any more, you can fold this in and fold the other in. You can, you don't have to, okay? It's not absolutely necessary, especially with these ones. With the other ones that have green salsa in it, that might become more mandatory, but in the meantime, this is what I do. It does not need to be hard, okay? You're just going to fold it up. There we are. Ready to go. All right, I'm going to put that one to the side for a moment. Take this one. Get rid of some of the water. Get some masa. Like I said, it doesn't need to be hard. Granted, I know I may make it look a little bit easier than what you would probably have it the first time that I did these. Believe me, I took a lot longer. It was probably about 5 minutes per tamal. So I'm not worried about, you know, do understand that it's going to take a little bit, especially if you want to learn how to do this and to do it right. It probably will take a little bit of practice. That's okay. Anything worth doing is worth doing well. So absolutely. Take your time, whatever time that you need, take it. Because the more time that you spend usually, if you take your time with it, in general, you know you're going to have a good product once you finish. All right. We got a little bit of this mixture for the insides. You just want it to be able to fold it all up. Okay. You want there to be enough in there. You can see it's a good bit inside, but yet you're going to be able to fold it over. All right. Okay. And there we go. Ready to fold up in here. Okay. And as you can see too, the other thing that I'm going to mention is you can see that this is moldable, malleable, but it's not cooked already. All right. You don't want it to be cooked, because it will cook in a minute once it gets onto that burner. Okay, here we are. Got that one. All right, I'm going to do just a couple more. I'm not going to do a whole lot more on camera for multiple reasons, not the least of which I figure that probably with a couple of examples, you don't really need a whole lot more input from me. Probably the majority of the input that you're going to need is actually from personal experience, okay? I'm not trying to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? I'm not trying to be discouraging or anything like that. No way. But at the same time, there's some things, just like riding a bike, I could explain to you all day long on how to do it. But up until you get on that bike and start pedaling with your feet, you're not going to know how to do it. So this, you know, you can take about a half of a cabbage leaf. It's not necessary to have the whole thing. So I may end up having more cabbage than what I expected. But it's quite okay. All right. And I just realized I've got way too much masa for this one. But that's okay. That's the good thing, is that it's easy to just throw it right back into the pot. It's no biggie. And the one thing too is if you've got these things, they're very moist. Then it can have the masa start to stick to your hands and it'll break a little bit more. Don't freak out about it. You just make sure to just flake off the next one a little bit better. There are some things that are not worth freaking out over in this life. I promise you that one. Okay? Alright, so then we've got, that one's pretty well, that's a good amount of filling. Here we go. Let's see if you can see it. There you go. All right, flip it over. There we go. All right. Okay, and I'm thinking that may be good enough. Hopefully, I will do one last one just to make sure that hopefully, if you have any questions, hopefully the next one will be helpful. All right. This is going to be a little bit bigger. Okay. This would be one of my size tamales, you know, because I like, you know, the other ones are more like something that I'll give my kids, because they aren't probably going to want a whole lot, because they are not big on a lot of vegetables. They are some of the strangest children that I know as far as that in some ways. They love broccoli. My older son still does not care for green beans. Neither of them is super big fans of corn. And those are the ones that, you know, kids typically, if they're going to love a vegetable, they will like corn or green beans or, you know, I don't know. But neither of my boys are the typical kid in that. They both prefer broccoli and on occasion spinach. but they don't really much care for many other vegetables, in part because they haven't been as introduced to other kinds of vegetables. I wish that I could say that I did, but I have a harder time remembering, because with the lifestyle that I have, I usually try to keep carbohydrates and fats somewhat separate. Long story. If you know anything about Trim Healthy Mama, that is the lifestyle that I try to use. Like I said, it's got a good amount of filling. There we go. And but yes, and I usually try to keep them separate. And because of my diabetes, I don't eat a lot of carby meals, so I do a lot more fattening meals, almost keto friendly. But at the same time, because of that, my kids don't get a lot of your carbier vegetables, such as peas or carrots or things like that. They don't eat a lot of those, so they haven't been as exposed. They've eaten a lot more broccoli, some cauliflower, things like that. So anyways, all right, so then we're gonna do a little bit bigger one with this one. All right, I'm gonna show you. You can make as big as you want. Okay, I'm gonna make this kind of fold it down. Okay, I want to make it a little bit expanded out, but I still don't want it to be too thick, like I already said. Okay, so I think that'll be good for that. I'm expanding it out like that. All right, here we go. All right, now you can see that it's somewhat more expanded. Okay, all right, so then, but I kind of want to leave it kind of as a short one, so I'll just fill it a little bit more. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go with that. Uh-oh. It's not uncommon to have a little bit of a mess. In fact, right now, I'm kind of keeping the mess away from the camera because my phone, my camera will definitely tell you that my kitchen is a little bit of a mess, but that tends to happen when you're getting ready to do stuff like that. But you see, it's filled, but you can still fold it over, and then you're ready to roll. Okay? All right, and I think that this will be the last one that I'm going to record for this time. But then I will let y'all see once I'm getting them into the vaporera and the pot. And I will show you how I get them set up so that it's easy. And hopefully it'll be easy for you. And I'll be able to get moving, because I know I go a little bit slower while I'm recording, but that's quite okay, because that way I know that hopefully I'm not going so fast that everybody else cannot keep up and understand what I'm doing. So there we go with that, and I will talk to y'all in a little bit once I've got this ready to roll. Okay, I'm going to do my best to just try to keep the camera right there so that it'll be easy. But I'm going to put one of these tamales on this side, but you don't want to put it too much on one side, or else it's going to start to get, what's it called? It'll get unbalanced and it'll kind of flip over. So you're just going to kind of put something on each side. All right, and I know that this is probably going to not stay like it's supposed to, so I apologize. Oops. I'm trying to keep this where you can still see it without the camera moving too much. So anyways, here we go with this. Gonna try to keep it level and steady, although I apologize, it probably won't. So, okay, here we go. Keeping everything about as level as I can. All right. Not a big deal if it's not perfect. I don't care. Neither should you, I promise. I have come to find out that this is the way to fit the most in here. Back in the day when I first started making tamales, I would have them actually laying down horizontal. And I found out that that was unnecessary. So it was great. That was a great day when I finally figured that out. because the ones on the bottom would be the ones that I would have to be very careful at how that they were laying, so they didn't get all that water in them and everything like that. But just like that, that's perfect. All right, and I'll see you again once once they're ready to go into the fire and onto the burner. Okay, so we now have all of them. Unfortunately, I only had 31 come out of this batch, and I'm already completely out of the innards, you could say. I still have some more masa, but I will probably use that within a few days and just make a few more tamales. But this is 31, and it fit right in there in the bottom of the pot. They're going to go onto the stove. You want it to boil, well, you can turn it on and it will boil. The water up under here will boil for about 2 hours, and then they're ready to go. Give me 1 second. Okay, so now it's on the stove. I've got both burners, the front and the back, because this is such a large pot. Of course, that's from earlier when I was doing other stuff and I just haven't had a chance to clean up. But anyways, okay, so then I've got both burners on high, and that will start to boil within a few minutes. If you've got a smaller pot, I would highly recommend about every half an hour, check your water levels. That's something that I always had to do when I was with the X a lot, because of the fact that I had smaller pots than this. This, I think that we got maybe a year and a half before, not quite a year and a half before I was able to escape. But this one is a huge pot, because you can see with the size of my stove, you know, where that it sits is so huge that it's too big for one single burner. So, but if you've got a smaller one, I always would check like every half an hour, make sure that it had enough water. And if it looked like it was getting a teeny bit low, add another couple cups of water, make sure that it's not going to run out. That's pretty much it. You just want to make sure that you keep the water levels where that it's not getting too low out of water, because I have had the water run out. And then it's a pain in the butt. You got to take all the tamales out the pot, wash the pot, make sure the burnt area is all taken care of, put more water in there, get it boiling again, and then all that. Oh, it's a pain in the butt. So you just want to make sure, keep the water levels up while you're cooking. Check every half hour if you've got a smaller pot. If not, a pot like this, it'll be fine for the 2 hours. I'm not even worried. So we'll see once they're done, and we'll get these babies together. To be able to put it together, all you got to do is make a red salsa that I already have the video on my channel, and you can just follow that video to make the red salsa, and then you're going to add some shredded mozzarella cheese on top of that, and then they're done. So but I'll put it together in just a little bit once these are done, and we will see you in a little bit. Alrighty, finally the time has come. The tamales should be done. They're getting ready to come out of the vaporera. So I know they're gonna be hot. I'm probably just about to burn my fingers, but hallelujah anyhow. Here we go. We got one. Now granted, depending on the size, you may eat probably 2, 3. I forget when it was. It's been a while, but I remember that there have been times that people that came, they ate, 4 or 5. And I don't tend to make teeny tamales or teeny tacos or anything to that effect. But in any case, I'm going to take this out, which granted, probably it's not the best idea to have them in the aluminum foil. I wonder sometimes if that aluminum could be kind of bleeding into the food. But at the same time, I'm not going to worry about it too hard, because it's only worth so much of my stress, right? And I'm going to just take it. I'm just taking it right out, just unfolding the aluminum foil, and then just letting it roll onto the plate. Okay? Here we go. Just kind of dumping it out. Okay, so there we have 3 tamales on one plate. Okay, just like that. That's however that you want to serve them on that plate. There we go. Okay, so then after that, you're going to want to get a little spoon. If you don't want this much salsa, you don't have to have this much salsa, but you're going to want to take the salsa and kind of bathe them babies. If you can see that, I'll put it a little bit closer to the camera in just a minute. But you're going to want to, oops, I just had a little bit of a spill on the counter, but I don't care at this moment. I'll clean it up in a minute. All right, there we go. Okay, there we go like that. Then after that, cover it up with lots of mozzarella cheese. Alright, there you go, and it's ready to go. So I'm getting ready. I'll make my kids' plates, and then we're gonna chow down. And so there you go. I hope that this video has been helpful. I hope that you enjoy these tamales just as much as I will. I hope my kids do. I don't remember them ever eating them while I was living with the ex, and that was the last time that I made them, was one time when I was with the ex a couple months before we got out. And so definitely I'm hoping that they will enjoy these, and I hope that you get to enjoy these as much as I do. If you enjoy my videos, I hope that you'll hit the like button, and also that you'll hit the subscribe. And that's pretty much it for now. Have a delicious day.